Welcome you all. This is the second session of sedimentary petrology. In the previous session, we have dealt with the different types of rocks and a very brief introduction about the sedimentary rock. So, we have seen that the first step towards the formation of a sedimentary rock is the weathering of the older rocks. So, here we will see firstly the weathering process, then the different types of weathering, and in this session, we will focus on the physical weathering and its types. So, weathering is the physical disintegration and chemical decomposition of the older rocks, which results in the formation of the small residue rock fragments and also some dissolved chemical substances. So this is of two types, the physical weathering and the chemical weathering. The physical weathering is the general disintegration of the rock and the chemical weathering results in the decomposition of the rocks. This weathering process generally occurs at the surface of the rock and different rock materials weather at different rates and a process called the differential weathering. So, the physical disintegration of the rock. The physical weathering is the process by which rocks are broken into smaller fragments through a variety of causes, but without any significant change in chemical or mineralogical composition. So, there are different types of physical weathering: freeze and thaw weathering, insulation weathering, mineral growth weathering, wetting and drying, stress release weathering, and biological processes of disintegration. One by one, we will see these different types of the physical weathering. The first one is the frost action, or what we called as freeze-thaw weathering. The disruption of the rock fabrics owing to stresses generated by freezing and thawing of water in the rock fractures is known as freeze and thaw weathering. Generally, some small amount of cracks or fractures are present in the rocks, and generally in a cold weather condition, if water will enters into these cracks, this water will crystallize or will change or solidify into ice. The water volume will change to about 9% when this water will change into ice, and thus it will create enough pressure due to which this rock fractures, the size of the rock fractures and the crack will increase, and slowly if this process will be carried out again and again, it will result in the disruption of the rock. The second process is the insolation weathering. As the word itself suggests, insolation refers to the sun temperature or the solar temperature. The expansion of rock surfaces heated by the sun followed by contraction as temperature falls results in the weakening of the bonds along the grain boundary and thus cause subsequent breaking of the rocks into small fragments. This generally occurs in a condition where the temperature very frequently changes. So when the temperature is high, the rock will expand, and when the temperature will reduce, the rock will contract, and thus this will result in the formation of small fragments and thus the weathering process. The third one is the stress release weathering. The stress release weathering is in this a rock unit buried below a land surface experiences high compressional stresses and because of the weight of the overlying rock. If some of the overlying rock is removed by erosion, compressional stresses on the rock unit is reduced and the rock unit rebounds upward. This results in the expansion of rock and the stress will be released, and subsequently this will result in the breaking of the rock into small pieces, and this process of crack formation is generally also known as sheeting. So this is generally the upper stress is removed through that results in the formation of small fragments, and thus we called it as stress release weathering. The other process that is very similar to stress release is the sheet joints or the exfoliation. Exfoliation is the peeling off of larger curved surfaces or slabs of rocks from the weathered surface of an outcrop. Thus, the first step is again the stress release. The stress release may create the initial fractures and which will be further widened and results in exfoliation. The final one is the wetting and drying and biological processes. These are again carried out through different biological microorganisms, and wetting and drying is the result of the water action. So these are other types of physical processes. Thank you.